I'm excited to be joined for this episode of Back to the City by both Ryan and Shea from Porno Wolves, who are going to be releasing their new LP, Renegades, at the Turf Club on August 25th. That's going to be with Buffalo Fuzz and with Two Harbours. I've seen you play with Buffalo Fuzz before.
Yeah, we played with them a lot. Really enjoy those two guys.
Yeah.
They bring a good audience,
Two
bring a
Harbours?
good vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
I've never played with Two Harbors. I've actually never seen them either.
Ah.
They're cool. I know them through Chris, who works at Twin Town.
Sure.
Guitar. He's worked on all of everything I own.
Oh, nice. All of your guitars.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're cool dudes. They've got kind of that Brit rock sound.
Yeah,
I
like
think
it.
so. Yeah, they were a good choice. We were pretty stoked when they got back to us to play
Awesome.
the release show.
Cool. I'm really excited about the record. Thank you for sharing it with me in advance. We're going to be able to hear some songs from it in today's episode.
Right on.
So you worked with Tim Balbo from the Lone Crows
Yep.
In the studio on this, and Ed Ackerson did the mastering. What was it like working with Tim?
Tim is a genius, an engineer. He's phenomenal. I can't say enough, positive things about him. And the record, I think, really reflects that.
Yeah.
It sounds, it sounds pretty incredible.
It does.
The best musical composition I've ever helped create. So we were super fortunate that Tim was willing to work on it with us.
Yeah.
And Tim and I had some ideas, from the get-go about how we wanted to record, stealing a lot of ideas from classic recording techniques, and then some other kind of weirder stuff too.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to say even nicer things about Tim.
Yeah,
Because
good.
you said in terms of like the classic techniques, what were some of the classic techniques that you used, and then we'll move on to kind of focusing on some of the less conventional stuff that you did in the studio with Tim. So the classic techniques. What?
Well, we kind of started out like our last album. We did all the drums and the bass live all at once.
Oh, yeah.
There was very little going back and backtracking. We kind of wanted to keep that live energy going.
Yeah.
We've always been trying to capture our stage presence through the albums that we make.
Yeah, hence
which
the
we
live
did-
album.
Yeah,
for example.
exactly. We did that pretty spot on in that album. But
Yeah.
we've always tried to keep that energy there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like with the live drums and the bass, there's really a drive, and then we add the other layers on top to create like kind of both worlds. Like you want. I think that's kind of the way I've looked at this album, was a very like a good combination of those two aspects, like
Yeah.
studio and live coming together.
The immediacy and the vitality of a live show, but then there's obviously the vocals and which other elements?
The guitars were all done after
We kept
the
some of the
fact.
guitars.
Yeah.
There were certain things that we couldn't switch out, and we didn't want. There's other things we absolutely wanted to keep. So we used, some big amps.
Yeah.
We used really nice
old
gear,
big amps,
really great microphones that were Tim's. Some cool rack gear that he had borrowed, I think, from a friend. And then, as Shea said, and that's been my favorite part of playing with Porno Wolves, is like the energy from the drums and the bass. You can't. I don't think we could have done that way if we didn't do it live. Him and Anthony together are just electric.
Anthony, who was in the Jaffies.
Yep, Anthony Gore.
The drums in the Jaffies. Yeah.
He also plays in Savage Moods, who are
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
rad. So if you're watching, check them out. So yeah, we recorded pretty much everything to start live, and then we layered and layered and layered. And Tim and I spent a pretty extensive amount of time getting all the tones right. We used some really fantastic amplifiers. My vision from the beginning is, I don't necessarily play guitar like Angus Young, but you can't not have that guitar tone on a record, a rock and roll record. So we wanted it to sound like and have a certain, kind of vintage feel. I think most rock albums, try and do that a little bit.
This one certainly succeeds at having the vintage feel.
Thank you.
I think
we spent a lot of time getting there.
Yeah.
So we, doubled up on amps a lot of times, even just getting like feedback and stuff. We played around quite a bit, and again, Tim was incredibly patient with me. I wanted to have that feel, where it's modern, and the effects that we use and the songwriting is modern, but there's this kind of timeless feel to it.
It's interesting that you say timeless, so kind of beginning to consider some of the themes. I think that this sense of timelessness is crucial to the record. There's references to myth, for example, and I'm pretty sure to time. Time keeps dragging me around. Is that lyric in Sierra Nevada?
From Sierra Negra.
Sierra Negra.
The Black Mountain.
What's the significance of time and timelessness, like, thematically, for the record?
Well, this album, whether I liked it or not, lyrically has kind of these underlying themes, which I didn't necessarily intend going into writing some of these songs. Some of the songs are a little bit older, but the story kind of assembled itself, and that's been the fun part of writing with Shea and Stephen and Anthony is I have this very basic idea, and then I bring it to them, and then all of a sudden it just like expands into a lot more than I was expecting.
Nice. So you have like a basic lyrical idea, or
some of it, yes. So I generally, if I bring a riff or some lyrics to the group, it all kind of happens at once, and it happens pretty quickly when we write songs. There haven't been many things. We've gigged some new tunes, trying to feel things out. Working on transitions and whatnot. Riddles in the Dark is a good example of that. It's got a bunch of different. It feels different throughout the song.
It does.
It's got a lot of different parts. And,
and that bit opens with like the bass and the drums, very prominent and kind of driving at the beginning.
Yeah. So that being said, the around the time, a lot of the, at least the lyrics in this record, have to do, it deals with a lot of different stuff. We've got some love ballads on the record, love songs, and not necessarily about my life or whatnot. Hopefully generalized enough for people to make their own.
Obviously
connections.
Tapping into an aspect of your experience, but
but this album, a lot of this is about about our band, and about our friends, close people, related, to the group. So, for example, we had, I think we talked about this at one point. Riddles in the Dark is kind of an ode to a friend of ours that passed away from alcoholism. And there's these elements, it was very easy to kind of help resolve that personally for me, by creating music with it. And another song for a friend that committed suicide. That kind of darker material, but at the same time there's from beginning to end there's this this kind of confusion into resolution. I think in the album, and that was whether I like it or not, that's what happened.
Well, like some of these songs were even like with Mike, what Riddles in the Dark is written about. There's songs like Winter's Night, which is like what we started playing like the first time we met each other. So like the time aspect starts from the beginning of the band, even prior to me being in it, with Ryan, Gasoline, all the way to now.
Nice.
Yeah, some of these songs are a bit older,
and like there is some closure.
They're not at all the same. Fortunately, I think they're not all the same as when I, maybe started writing them.
Well, like we didn't want to record them at first. We didn't feel like they were done.
Right.
And I feel like they're done now. Like the first record we did, like Winter's Night just didn't fit into it, so we're like, we'll save it. And then we did it live because we play it live on our live album, Young and Rising, and then we decided to do it again. And it's that kind of evolved once more into something else. And I think that's the final product is what we wanted.
So when I did an interview with Anthony and Shea before, back when Back to the City was at Silent Radio and a radio show, and you were highlighting then that the songs from the first record, many of them were back from when Ryan was a singer-songwriter before the band, and then a lot of the new songs, the 7 new songs that you were kind of premiering, so to speak, on the live record, were a lot more collaborative, and there was more. I recognized that there were themes of light and dark, especially in there were 4 songs back to back on the live set. Winter Night, Riddles in the Dark, Blue Light, and then Young Moon Rising, where the metaphor of lightness and dark was being used in interesting different ways, like in those all 4 of those songs back to back. In these more collaborative, newer songs, and that was kind of reflective of the ethos of the band as a whole.
I feel like kind of like after the first album, we just kind of looked at what we'd done, and we just started kind of writing new material, and it was becoming less of this like drop D, like metal kind of stuff, into like more of like beats that kind of like progress forward. And I think that's where that came from. And like even at one point you said you didn't want to write sad music like that anymore. And
well, I kind of stopped when I started playing with you guys about the time that we started, getting ready to record Riddles in the Dark or Young Moon Rising. I kind of just stopped writing sad music.
Right.
For the most part. Or there's this, this ability to resolve things that maybe I hadn't been able to before. And I know when I was doing the singer-songwriter thing, songs, when you start them, I eventually would just destroy everything, right? I'd pick things apart, and Shea and Steven and Anthony, I think gave me an opportunity to like create something and then move on.
Right, so you would destroy everything by like reworking it?
Yeah.
Because and there's something very obviously solitary about being a singer-songwriter. So I can understand, as one, I can understand how it would lend itself to being darker, perhaps. Solipsistic is perhaps too extreme a word, but more kind of focused on the self. And also, this sense of, because you are the one entity that's determining it, it's never finished. It could always...
Exactly.
Well, I think this lightness also comes from just us having fun together. So like when we sit down, you bring us a riff, or someone else brings in something they want to play, like we try to figure it out, and then we end up just having fun. In the end, it's fun for us. Like Anthony's getting all sweaty, whatever, like banging on stuff, like Steven's doing some ridiculous lick, and like we all just look at each other, and like all you can do is smile.
Absolutely.
So like this lightness came from taking these old material and finishing it, and then starting new things that interested us and kept us going into making this new record.
All you can do is smile or laugh, perhaps. Like laughter is referenced at least a couple of times in the record. So like in Winter Night, we rolled down hills like children and laughed.
That one's interesting because that's one of our oldest songs, and there's still that like light in there.
Okay.
So that's kind of like maybe even a way of looking at it. It's like that's where we wanted to get to, and maybe that's why it took us 3 or 2 full albums to really like nail that song down.
So there were these attributes there, and you were thinking, okay, there needs to be, that's a key ingredient. We need to have more of that. The other time that laughter comes up, or another time, maybe there's more than 2, is in The Road Goes Ever On. And there we have this female character who's got broken wings, smothered in ash, but the lyric referring to those wings is emphasizing that we can see them, as opposed to that they're broken. So they're there, is I suppose the focus of the lyric, which seems indicative. Finding the silver lining, seeing the wings, even if they're covered in ash. She sings of handsome kings and lovely queens, of better days, and laughter before the shadow fell upon her heart. So there's this hearkening back to laughter in both of those instances, like remembering children rolling down a hill and laughing, and then laughter before the shadow fell. And it's interesting that there was this lyric about laughter that you're kind of hearkening back to. That's an interesting, because we listen to the record, it is still dark in many ways, it is still kind of brooding in some ways, but it's reflective. It's almost like pleasantly haunted by this laughter. Would you say that's right? Because you're not laughing at any point in the record, but you're kind of
it's not like not sad, but it's not like stuck in the sadness.
It's
Yeah.
not a bummer anymore. Yeah.
I don't know if the first one was such a bummer, but like we played a lot darker back then, and a lot like deeper in tone.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And this one was more of standard tuning instead of
Yeah.
the drop D. Like drop D and bass gets really deep, and you really feel it. And to me, it's sad because you want to play in D minor because you drop down. We played a lot of stuff in D minor back then.
Mhm.
This one was more in A,
Yeah.
in A major actually.
Hmm. These lyrics to "The Road Goes Ever On," this is a newer song.
That's a newer song. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorites on the record because it's got this like, I mean, it's dark at the beginning. You know, it's not like a happy song initially, and then it's part of that resolution.
Yeah.
I think, and hopefully that ripping guitar solo in there makes feels optimistic. It's definitely very major in the musically it's very major and positive, as is the chorus bit and everything.
So what the music is doing here to kind of uplift us, how does that relate to the narrative within the song where we encounter this angelic figure across the moor singing her song of goodness?
Without giving away, and personalizing it too much, hopefully, it can be left a little bit vague for people listening. I know personally this song was it's not a positive story, but ultimately it's like, there's only one way out, to be able to be okay at the end of the day, and sometimes you just have to make do with what you've got. And I know, at least through my own journey through, getting sober and all of that, this experience has been, altogether, it's like through darkness, despair, depression, all of that, at the end of the day, you've got to get something that's worthwhile. And this is kind of one of those stories, I think. And finding peace without giving too much away, this is like the resolution of the album.
It's the final. Is it the final track?
It's not the final track.
It's the final track
decided
on the
to
live
leave
record, isn't it?
It is.
The end of the
We
song.
used to play that one last a lot.
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
ending is just
It hits
so
pretty
there,
hard.
It's really loud.
Yeah.
It's dynamically, changes when we play it live. It's very it starts off quiet and gentle and kind of sad, and then just digs into the bones.
Yeah.
So
There's power and there's a sense of resolution. So that's why it would close a set nicely. Why did you decide not to end the album on that note?
well, back to the kind of classic rock canon. It's pretty typical to put an acoustic song at the end.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
we put an acoustic love song at the end.
What's the name of that?
That's Gasoline.
Gasoline. Yeah.
Which is another one of our older tunes. But it's
That was when you played acoustically alone.
So we used to do
So
that
probably
one.
one of the oldest.
One of the when we first started playing together, I think we only played it maybe once or twice as a band, and then we reworked it a bit.
You
And
can never
Anthony,
figure the key out. So it's C sharp.
yeah, it's
open
in
C-sharp
it's in
tuning.
a strange tuning.
So we would try to figure it out, and then I don't know. I think it's a good ode. I think it's a good closure to everything we've done so far is having this acoustic song. So starting as
We hadn't done an
act.
acoustic
Yeah,
jam
we've never
yet,
done an acoustic
and,
jam either.
It was time. It was time to do one that's kind of more fun and it's light.
Yeah.
Light song.
And given that the record is kind of like a journey through darkness to light, that's very appropriate end. So Gasoline is acoustic. We were talking before about how before the bands you had your singer-songwriter stuff. How different or similar sounding is the acoustics on Gasoline to your earlier singer-songwriter material?
It's a bit different in
Yeah.
the feel. So almost anything that I brought to them when we started is is significantly different. I think some of the songs still translate well to an acoustic guitar, you know, and hopefully people, if they like them enough, will be able to learn them on. Everything's fairly straightforward guitar-wise, you know, but the energy of it's a lot different, I think. You know, Anthony's drums, you know, on the recording, and then some, you know, auxiliary percussion really makes it like feel a lot more kind of like, you know, groovy than just like by itself. So I'd say it's a lot more, it's higher energy and it's a lot more fun.
Yeah, and the higher energy is appropriate because, you know, there's a lyric, there's gasoline running in my heart. Is that
burning
in my heart? Yeah, you don't want it to be too laid back if you've got gasoline burning in your heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The conclusion that you come to at the end of the song, and therefore at the end of the record, is that a sign that that's what enables you to know that you love her?
So yeah, it's a, you know, there's euphemisms and analogies, I guess, all over the place to, you know, gasoline, you know, I'm on fire, you know, kind of thing, and I think love can be like that. Yeah, you know, and
so you feel
it can be uncomfortable. It can be sweaty at times.
Yeah, that's a lyric too. Makes me sweat.
Yeah. You know, and I think there's similarities to you know, at times like you know, when you're falling in love with somebody or you know, and some of the more uncomfortable things, you know, there can be similar feelings that happen. You know, the discomfort and. You know, that's part of the excitement of it. You know, it's emotionally charged, and you know, so
your body is alerting you to what you're feeling. Yeah, and that's the, you
it's like, hey man, this is exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, it's not cerebral, and it's almost like the body and the music. You know, it's working through this music that you come to that realization. Is that also partially like why this is the final song? The idea of arriving at that like a recognition of love at the end.
I think there's a ton of references to love in the album. Yeah. And I think that's an important, you know, feature for us, and you know, we as a group, I know have all had or have currently, you know, serious, you know, relationships with you know, significant others, and like I said, you know, it's not all about me this time. This record's not all about me necessarily, but I like the idea of you know, creating, you know, songs or that avenue for people to maybe think about love in a new way.